Hi everyone, this is Susan Hope Bard with TechSoup. We're going to get started with our live event, our TechSoup 30 with our hidden Adobe gems. And our guest today is Wes Holing. A couple of things to note as we get started is that in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, you can adjust your video settings if at any time the visual becomes distorted or it's a little fuzzy. You can bring your video connectivity up to 720, which is high definition. There's a little gear in the lower right-hand corner, and if you just click on that gear, there's two different choices. There's speed and quality, and if you go to quality, it will automatically be on 480p, and then you can go to 720 HD, and it should clear everything up. I do want to make sure that everyone can hear me right now before we get started with the formal presentation. So if you want to give me a quick chat that you're able to hear me, that would be great. So as we get started, a couple of things that you've probably noted. I see that some of you that are on today also have been with us during other events. So you do know that we house all of the recordings on this particular course, and they're just by date. So you can go ahead at any point in time and review any of the recordings. You can also complete surveys if you haven't had a chance to complete surveys for past events. We do collect this data so that we can make these better and more engaging, or that we address issues that you are having in your nonprofit or library. Kim, thanks for responding that you can hear. Awesome. Before we get started, one other quick thing. We will be hosting several other events for the rest of this month. You know that you can RSVP to any of the events by just clicking on the date in the upper, on the sidebar, the right side. Just click on the date, then you can RSVP, and you can also see who else is going to be joining us during that event, in addition to the speaker or our expert. So I am going to turn this over to Wes Holing, who has delivered so many amazing short and long webinars for us on Adobe products. I'm sure you're familiar with him, and I also know you probably love all of his presentations. And we hope you also have the opportunity to check out some of the courses that he's developed in this particular platform, TechSoup courses. We have one on Photoshop and on Illustrator. Soon we'll have one on infographics as well. So Wes, I am going to put myself on mute and then turn it over to you. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Susan. As Susan mentioned, my name is Wes Holing. I'm a senior web content developer here at TechSoup. If you've attended any of our previous Adobe videos, like our webinars or these TS30s, you've probably seen and heard from me before. Usually I'm covering things on the Adobe Creative Cloud collection, like Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, some of the big names. In fact, a lot of Photoshop. But today I'm going to be talking about what we're calling the hidden gems. These are apps that come in Creative Cloud that don't get as much attention as some of the big name products. And there are some really great apps within the Creative Cloud collection. The first one I'd like to show you, you may have heard of before. In fact, it's not so much an app as it is a service. It's called Adobe Stock. This is, I'm going to switch over here. This is a fairly new addition to Adobe Creative Cloud. Give you a little tunnel vision for a moment there. One moment while I switch. That's our page. Sorry, one second. If you're in, for example, Photoshop or Illustrator or any of the Adobe Creative Cloud collection of apps, you might have seen it in your menus. Under the File menu, you can see, for example, in Photoshop, there's Search Adobe Stock. And this will appear in a lot of different places throughout the application. But if you just click that, and we'll wait until it loads up here on my screen. It'll take you to a page in your browser of choice that is just like any other stock photo site. If you've used Shutterstock or iStock or Getty Images or any of the big name stock photo warehouses, this will look pretty familiar in terms of its interface. Adobe includes still images, illustrations, videos. They've also got a premium section that includes some of the best quality images in their collection. So some very good assets here if you're looking for something to use in your annual report, in posters, in handouts, in any kind of collateral that you might need to send along to either inform donors or your constituents or just the public in general about the mission that you are involved in. One thing I'll note is that the photos that come in stock are not necessarily free for Adobe Creative Cloud subscribers. The standard rate starts at $9.99 for a single image, but you'll notice this blue bar down here. When you sign up for Adobe Creative Cloud, you get 10 free stock images with your account, with your subscription, excuse me. So that means that from the beginning, you get those 10 free images. Again, so the standard rate is $10 per image, and this is a little bit more than you'll see from some of the other big name stock photo warehouses, and this is my unbiased opinion, Adobe is not paying me, I promise, only TechSoup is paying me. The quality of Adobe stock images, I generally believe, is higher than the standard stock warehouse photo sites. And I've looked through these sites, or this site a lot through its collections. There are a lot of great photos in here that are more candid, that are more in the field, that are generally more nonprofit friendly, I would think, than from some other stock warehouse sites. Definitely shop around, and you're not stuck with just using the images from Adobe Stock if you're using Photoshop or Illustrator or any of those apps, but definitely give it a look. One thing to consider, though, it's not just the prices aren't just per image. If you subscribe to Adobe Stock and you have a Creative Cloud subscription, your cost monthly can go, instead of a single image costing $10, it'll go from $50, which is the monthly rate for 10 images per month, down to just $30 per month for those 10 images. And one nice thing about Adobe Stock that I haven't seen in other stock sites is that Adobe allows you to roll over your stock image credits. So if you don't use all 10 of those images in a given month, say you only use 5, the next month you'll have 15 to use. Most stock sites will say, okay, you get X with us, and then if you don't use them all, then the next month you still get that same number. Not the case with Adobe Stock. If you only use a certain amount in one month, the remainder will roll over month over month over month. So you're paying for what you're getting, and you're not just throwing money away. So definitely worth considering if you're looking for some high quality images that will plug in nicely with the Adobe Creative Cloud apps. One other thing, and I'll show you this as well, if you're looking for images, let's say I'll click on photography, and while this loads up, I'll show you what I'm talking about. If you have an image that you're interested in, for example, this one here of an older man and a younger boy playing chess, you can save the preview to your library. Because you have Adobe Creative Cloud, all of your assets, including images, fonts, colors, can be saved to your Creative Cloud library and then used in any other place that you use your Creative Cloud apps, your phone, your desktop and your laptop, for example. And you can save these to your library just as a preview if you're not quite ready to commit to the price on it, and then try it out, lay your text over it, make your modifications, and then when you're ready, purchase it. You'll have the full image in your file ready to go without having to redo all of your work. So that's Adobe Stock. I also want to show you another app, and this one's not so much of a hidden gem. You may have heard of it before. It's After Effects. Now, After Effects is a video processing application. So if you're using Premiere Pro to create your videos, you import your clips and you edit them all together and you adjust the audio and make all your transitions and all of that, After Effects is what comes in after that, which is fantastic for creating motion graphics, adding text that moves, adding illustration elements that animate within the video, all sorts of things, adding end credits, for example. It's the sort of post-production work is all done in After Effects. And I'm personally not an After Effects expert. The one thing I've made in After Effects, you may have seen on our TechSoup videos, is this little short. So I'll show that one more time. You can see that the white comes in, blue comes up, our logo and the word video, and then they disappear. All of that is done in After Effects. There was no work done in, for example, Premiere, which is the other mainstay of the Adobe Creative Cloud collection. So let me go ahead and open up After Effects to show you. Now, I'll let that sync up for you, and I'll say right away, yes, this looks like a lot to handle, and it is. But if you've used any video editing software before, or you're at all familiar with timeline-based editing, this will begin to be very familiar. In the center here, we have the canvas, which is where the actual contents of your video are going to go. On the left side, we've got all of the assets that we may need to import. This includes videos, logos, still images, and including the solid elements. You'll look right here, there's a folder called solids. There's the black solid, the white, that blue. These are the elements that move around in the video that are present in my library. And then down here is the timeline. You can see that we've got a lot of different layers here. And the layers I refer to, if you've used Photoshop or Illustrator or InDesign, it's the same concept as the layers in that. There's one literally on top of the other. If you imagine on your table, you have one sheet on top of another sheet on top of another sheet. It's the same concept. You're layering things in the same way that we're layering them here. You can see that right now the background of my canvas is transparent. And if I move along this time indicator, you can see the white begins to come down. This is all very slow motion for a few second video. The blue comes up. My logo comes up and even kind of bounces a little bit to give it some physics, some motion. And so does video. They hold for a brief moment. I'm going to scrub all the way through, and then they both disappear. After Effects is very user-friendly when it comes to animation. If I decide that I want an element to start on from one position and then move to the other, I don't have to physically add it to each frame. I can just say it starts here, it ends there. Now you think of the rest, and it'll automatically produce that for me. There are a lot of really great tutorials online from Adobe as well as from other third-party vendors for how to use After Effects. In fact, that's how I made this. We decided at TechSoup that we needed a nice little intro for our videos, and I volunteered and then realized I had no idea how to do it. But thanks to some quick YouTube searches and the assets from adobe.com, I was able to put together this. And while it's not going to win any awards, it is a very clean and quick intro to our videos that can just be dropped into anything and give us a little extra branding when it comes to the work that we produce. And if you're producing any kinds of videos for YouTube, for Facebook, for Twitter, it's really nice to have something like this that you can just drop in and not think about. And then you've got your name in front of whatever video may go viral, God willing. So definitely check out After Effects. If you have no idea what to do with it, check out some of the tutorials online first, but don't be afraid to just dive in and tinker around, because honestly, that's the best way to learn any of these applications that I've been covering. The other application that I wanted to cover is one called Muse. If you've done any work online in terms of web design or just updating your own website, you may have heard of a term called responsive design. Responsive design is something, while you may or may not have heard of the term, you've definitely experienced it on the web. What it means is you are making your website responsive to different devices. So for example, if you've ever looked at on your phone at a web page that's designed for a desktop environment, you'll know that the text is super small, or the links are very hard to click because it's meant for someone with a mouse. So websites have been moving in a more responsive direction, so that your one website doesn't have to have a second mobile version. Instead of like mobile.nonprofit.org, you can just have nonprofit.org, and it looks different for different devices, and you only have to update your content once. Now, this sounds like a lot of work, and it can be if you have a legacy website. The reason I brought up our 20 days of Adobe site here is to show you exactly what responsive looks like. Right now, I've got the desktop version of the site open. Now, if I shrink the width of my browser to be more like a mobile phone, you'll see how this content changes. So right now, it's still wide enough for desktop. But if I click and drag, you'll watch the content snap. There we go. Now that the browser window is narrow enough, sort of like your phone, you can see how the image below shrunk down. The image at the top also shrunk down. And I'll re-expand so you can see that one more time. Wide image with left justified header text. Now it's centered, and the image expands only to the width of the browser. And if I scroll down, you can see that some of our daily events will also change. This is the mobile view, and this is the desktop view. The image is left aligned, and the image floats to the left, and then the text is left aligned. But if we bring it to the mobile view, you can see that everything becomes centered. Centered, of course, a little more friendly for a mobile view. So that's what responsive design is. But here's how you can make it work for your organization. If we bring up Muse, this is the interface for Muse. This is a template that I got off of just off of the web from responsive-muse.com. There's a lot of great sites out there that are third-party sites that offer templates in Muse. So if you don't want to have to do the heavy thinking about where's my breakpoints and how's this going to look and where should I put all these things, you can just grab some templates and begin to play with them. They may not necessarily plug in directly to the CMS that you have, but they're a great way to at least workshop your site design, get some ideas, and try out a few things before you have to fully commit to it in the code. And the code brings me to another great point about Muse. You don't have to work in code. If you don't know HTML, you don't know CSS, you don't know JavaScript, that's great because you don't have to touch it with Muse. What I'll show you here is this is a template for the desktop view of this site. As you can see, there are little text frames around certain elements. If you've used if you've used Illustrator or InDesign, you can see how some of this is sort of familiar. There's elements that you can click and move around. You can change the text. Like, for example, if I wanted to change this to slogan here, I can. These are all just elements in a layer, and you can see on the right, there's also layers just like in Illustrator, in InDesign, Photoshop, etc., and move things around. It's all very visual and all very non-destructive. So this is my desktop view. I can bring it into another view, which is sort of more of a wide tablet view. If I click here, you can see it's become a little narrower. If I want to look at a horizontal mobile view, I've got that here. And if I want to look at a vertical mobile view, we've got that here. Now, this text is a little too wide for a mobile view, but I can fix that so that it's only wide enough for the mobile view and doesn't shrink down for the other view. Over here on the left, there's an option, format text across breakpoints or format text on current breakpoint. And breakpoint is just a fancy way of saying whichever device you're currently looking at. Right now, I'm looking at the vertical mobile view. If I just click this, choose my element, change the text from 60 points to, let's say, 48. That's a little better. And I'll click away. Now, if I click, now watch the size of slogan here. If I click away to another breakpoint, it gets a little bigger. If I click back to the vertical mobile, it's a little smaller. It's really handy to have your elements on your page adjust to the width of your browser. If I like what I've got, and I do, it's not bad. I can go to File, Export as HTML, and choose a place to export it. It'll just go through a quick export process, giving me a little status bar as it goes. One font, so that's not a problem. Now, it'll automatically pop up in my browser, and you can see this is the exact site that I had laid out. And I never had to type a single character of HTML. If I bring my browser window in, there's the sort of wider tablet view. There's the sort of vertical tablet view. If I bring it in real close, oh, there it is. I have to do a little bit of adjustment. I I could have brought that text in a little smaller, but you still get the idea that this is the vertical mobile view. Again, all of my elements changed based on what I gave it without making any adjustments to the HTML. Muse is a great option for anyone who's starting out with web design, is familiar with other graphic design programs within the Adobe Creative Cloud collection, but doesn't have a lot of experience with web development. So sort of a great app to use if you're going in between, for example, Adobe Illustrator and Adobe Dreamweaver. Highly recommend checking out Muse. One other app that I'd like to recommend is if you've used InDesign for creating print brochures, posters, postcards, anything like that that involves copy, you know how difficult it can be if you're waiting on someone else to make a copy that then you have to lay into your design. Sometimes you have to create the design before you get the copy, and it's this sort of waiting game. Adobe makes it easy for that collaborative process to work with another app called InCopy. InCopy is sort of, it's not quite analogous to Microsoft Word, but it is a word processor in that I can create, or rather someone else can create the copy in InCopy, typing, you know, for your design, oops, if I can type it, design in here. Make my changes with fonts and even track changes like you can in in Microsoft Word. Accept changes, reject them. All of your basic font and text changes can be done within InCopy. And then in InDesign, create a space for that copy to live so that I'm, as a designer, not dependent on the person who's writing the copy to finish their part. I can start creating everything around it, see it as it comes in. They can make their changes. Someone else can make changes to it so that I don't have to share my design file. It makes the whole collaboration process a lot easier. And the two apps work together very seamlessly. So if you have any kind of permissions issues with someone writing it in Word and then sending it to you to drop into InDesign, InCopy is a great solution to that problem. And I have just a couple of minutes left, so I'd like to touch on one other hidden gem within the Adobe Creative Cloud collection. If you've ever run into a situation where you wanted a great font, but didn't have it on your computer, or you have something in mind, oh, I'd like it to be, you know, bolder or kind of heavier or lighter, very thin, something like that. There's the service that comes with Adobe Creative Cloud called Typekit. If you have, let's say, let me just open up Photoshop here, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. If I just create some text here in my document, waiting for it to respond. There we go. Text here. Terrible font. But if I click on my font list, right over here is Add Fonts from Typekit. All you do is click the little TK icon. It'll pop up in your browser, and this takes you to Adobe's website for Typekit, which is its storehouse for all sorts of fonts. I can browse fonts based on what I'm looking for. If I'm looking for something sans serif, which doesn't have the little notches on it, serif, which of course is a little bit older, like Times New Roman, Georgia, slab serif, script. If I want a handwriting font, I can find one like that, which is the one that I came from. So if I'm looking for a different handwriting font, I can choose hand, give it a few other, options. Let's say it's narrow, and I kind of like a high H in the X height style. There we go. That's something that fits my description. I can click that. It's in my plan as it tells me, and then all I have to do is sync it to my library, and then it's added right into Adobe Creative Cloud for me. I can also use it on the web if I want by clicking this and getting the embed information that I can add to my website. If someone doesn't have it, is not a problem. It will add it to the computer, but just within their browsing experience. So Typekit is another great way to get the design and style you're looking for with your copy without having to purchase a bunch of new fonts or worry about, well, who has access to them and who doesn't. It looks like I'm just at time here, so I'm going to hand things back over to Susan to tell you about a few other things TechSoup related. Go ahead and take it away, Susan.
Great, thanks so much. Thanks, Wes. It's always interesting to hear Wes talk about these different programs. It seems like Adobe has programs for everything, and he makes them look so easy. So we may get some feedback that we'd like to have some more detail on a few of those. Thank you. I do want to share my desktop so I can run through a couple of new articles and also just kind of share with you a couple of other things. Jim Lynch, next week, he will be talking about green tech. So we will have the opportunity to talk all about green technology and our affordable refurbished program. So I hope you join us next week. A couple of articles that have recently been published. This first one is how to ask for new technology for your nonprofit. So essentially, some of the things you need to think about, especially if you're ending, your fiscal year, is, how are you going to make a plan, your tech plan for next year, both strategic and tactical. This article helps you address some of these things. And we also have a course. We have a free course in our TechSoup courses called Tech Planning 101, which helps you assess your current technology at your nonprofit. So between the two of these, how to ask for new technology and the free Tech Planning 101 should give you a good start for the next fiscal year. Another article, Hidden Gems for Nonprofits in the TechSoup catalog, similar to what Wes just talked about with the hidden gems for Adobe. Jim has written a really interesting article about the hidden gems in terms of our product donations. So one of them is Airbnb. We do encourage you to read these articles. There are also some interesting links. Airbnb, the social impact experiences, very interesting partnership that we have with Airbnb, and we think you'd be well positioned if you read the article and also learned a little bit more about the social impact experience. One other thing is the Veritas donation program. That's kind of a hidden gem, and it helps you with backup and restoration. So we encourage you to read these articles and to access these particular courses. Like I said, Tech Planning 101, and you can also look in our catalog for the Veritas donation program. So I am going to stop sharing and see if anybody has any questions. I don't see any questions, but we have one more minute. So before we end, I want to thank you for your time today. And we hope you join us next week, like I said, for green tech and refurbished technology. And then after that, we will be hosting another series of social media and some Adobe product events upcoming. So thanks for coming today. I'm glad that all of the technology worked this time much better in terms of the audio. So if you have any questions, you can chat those to me in the chat box right now, or you can send me an email after the program. I'm going to put my email in the chat box. Or if you have suggestions for any additional events that you would like to see in this platform, go ahead and shoot me an email or complete the survey and let us know what you'd like to see. Wes, thank you so much again. You are an amazing presenter and also a great partner. So thanks, in terms of delivering all these Adobe hidden gems and also all of our Adobe trainings that we have in the platform. And thanks to all of you for coming today. Have a great rest of your week and also have a great long weekend for Memorial Day. Bye-bye.